Talk about low-budget flights. No food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to my channel. So I just want to tell all of you I'm very thankful for the amount of views my first video got. Sure, 45 isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, of course, but just the fact that I got that many is very good. I'm very happy about it. Um, yes, this channel is called Archie Sonic Fan, and I will be making more Sonic videos. But I've decided that in the middle of the week, I'll be making shorter videos compared to the very long one I did on Sunday. So, I'm also a big Marvel fan aside from Sonic, of course, and the thing I'm going to be going over today is how to fix Captain America the First Avenger. I know people complain about the modern MCU films a lot, but nobody really complains about the older ones, and being a comic fan, I've got quite a lot of issues. The reason I'm going over the first Avenger out of all of them is that I think this could have been the greatest comic book movie ever made. It had so much potential, and it even had some really good parts, but it sadly just got ruined because of a lot of other little things that added up, and some of them are even pretty big. I mean, to start, just look at the movie's logo. It's just plain gray silver. There's no color. Captain America logo should be red, white, and blue. So that comes to chapter one, Cap's costume, and more specifically, just Cap himself. I mean, here is his movie costume, and then here is what he looks like in this comics, and here's what he looks like in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes for a cartoon example. In the comic and cartoon, he just has this nice, simple, but brightly colored red, white, and blue design with the shield and the pattern on his chest, and it all looks very nice. But in the movie, they have all these brown straps on him. I've never understood why the movies are obsessed with adding brown straps to Captain America's shield. It's so ugly. Even the brown straps look more gray than brown because there's so little color. His shield is all dirty and dented, which, if it's supposed to be super strong, it shouldn't have so many dents and shouldn't at least be painted so it would have more color. And there's just other things about his costume of just how over designed it is. And it's so dark, like I already said before. In the Star Spangled Man with a Plan scene, which is definitely the best scene in the movie, they gave him this nice, brightly colored, comic accurate costume. And sure, it might look a little silly, but it looked comic accurate, it looked nice. Just give him the shield, and that would have been great. That was a really good costume. And then there's also just the fact that Chris Evans is not a good Captain America at all. Part of Cap's identity is his inspiring nature. In Earth's Mightiest Heroes, he sounds big, he sounds proud, he sounds inspiring. And then in the movies, he just sounds like some dude. His voice completely takes you out of the experience. Chris Evans didn't do a bad job performing, and part of that's the script he was given, but it just goes for the entire of the MCU. There's just nothing about Cap that screams Captain America. He just screams some guy. They never really do that good a job with him interacting with the modern world. He never seems super surprised or anything. He just seems to get used to it so quickly. And his costume is just never good in the movie. I don't know why. And him time traveling at the end of Endgame, I just didn't like that. He should have just lived in the modern day. He was happy. He was finally happy with his life. He shouldn't have just lost all that so he could go back to his girlfriend. I mean, I know a lot of people like that ending, but I sure don't. And yeah, he just doesn't sound inspiring. He never talks about liberty or freedom, and he just doesn't feel special enough to be Captain America. Chapter 2, his arch rival, the Red Skull. This one is a little better, as I think Hugo Weaving played the Red Skull really well. I mean, he looks like the Red Skull. I mean, here's a Earth's Mightiest Heroes version of what he looks like. They're very close, but the problem with this version is that, well, one, first Avenger, he could have been the main villain of the Captain America movies, but instead he just shows up 7 years later in Infinity War. It really didn't need to be him. All it did was pretty much just tell the fans, "Hey, remember that guy? He's still here." He even had a different actor. And there's also just stuff I really don't like. I mean, they only call him the Red Skull once in the entire movie, and it's not even Captain America. It's some random Nazi soldier. He's called by his real name, and the Red Skull is much more menacing than Johann Schmidt, which just sounds so stupid. I don't know about you, but I think supervillains should be called by their name. It'd be like if Magneto were called Eric every single time he showed up. Oh wait, that does happen sometimes. Or if, I don't know, Doctor Doom was just constantly called Victor all the time, which is would just be weird and take you out of it. And I just don't like him spending half the movie wearing a human mask. I mean, Hugo Weaving does actually have a face that could maybe think, yeah, this guy could be a threat, and so is his voice is good too, but I want to see the Red Skull, not Nazi commander guy. And it's just what to make it a surprise for new audiences. Pretty sure the posters you could tell there was a evil soldier guy with a red face. Want people to see it fully, but it's just that also this movie wasn't a huge box office hit. I'm sure most of the people who went to see this movie were big Marvel fans. They would have known who the Red Skull is. It just don't. Again, he did do a good job playing the character. It's just that there's a lot of things about him that bug me. Chapter 3, the Cosmic Cube, or as the MCU calls it, the Tesseract, which that's such a terrible name. It's called the Cosmic Cube. Sure, you can say, but the audience would say the Cosmic Cube is too dumb a name. And to that I say, audiences embraced Marvel when it first became a big thing. Sure, it wasn't like millions of people around the world read it or anything, but hundreds of thousands did. It was a big hit. What's wrong with the name the Cosmic Cube? It sure sounds better than the Tesseract, which is literally a thing from that book A Wrinkle in Time. And that just sounds so generic. The Cosmic Cube is a name that actually has energy in it. It sounds like a big deal. I mean, whenever Marvel put any cosmic in anything, it always sounded like a big deal. Chapter 4, Hydra. I do like the MCU making Hydra a Nazi subdivision, which makes a lot of sense, but their costumes, much like Captain America's, are the definition of just boring Hollywood blockbuster. They are just black with some gray. That's so dull. If you look at the comics and Earth's Mightiest Heroes, they've got these cool green and yellow costumes that pop, but specifically in Earth's Mightiest Heroes, not so much in the comics. They actually look menacing because of the helmets they gave them in that cartoon. That's the way they should have looked. So yeah, I know this cartoon and movie were made at the same time, but that tells me that they probably could have made the Hydra soldiers in the movie look more like this in the cartoon. They just didn't for some reason. And since none of them really have personality, which I guess isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you mostly just see them stand around and hold guns and shoot, which again, I guess that's actually pretty accurate, but because their costumes are just so bland, it doesn't really make them look intimidating. They just look like one big glob of nothing. Sure, you can say, but they're an army. They all have the same uniform. Wouldn't they look like a big blob of nothing either way? Which, I mean, yeah, they'd all look the same, but at least they'd pop more. Whenever they're surrounded by gray backgrounds in a modern movie, they just look so boring. Chapter 5, The Howling Commandos. And yes, that comic cover says Sergeant Fury, because unknown to most people these days, Nick Fury fought in World War II. It wasn't just a thing they retconned after he became too old for that, because Marvel started in the 60s. They said no, he just took some elixir to keep himself young. And this is a big part of his character. We see him before he got his eye patch, we see him as a World War II hero. It's a really great comic, it's one of Marvel's best. But since they're not superheroes, the Howling Commandos barely get anything these days. The most they get is a cameo where all of them show up in Earth's Mightiest Heroes, well, except for Nick Fury. Instead, it's his father, but hey, at least they said his father fought in World War II. In the movies, they just don't have, he doesn't have any connection to Captain America in the 40s, which is pretty lame. And also that, yeah, outside of that cameo in Earth's Mightiest Heroes, there's never a single time where all of the Howlers appear. I mean, look in the movies. Okay, you've got Dum Dum, the guy with the mustache and bowler hat. That's obvious. You've got Gabe because he's the black one. You've got other guys. Okay, one of them is Percy Pinkerton's hat, but he doesn't have the glasses. He doesn't have the white gloves. He doesn't have the umbrella. Or why is there some Chinese guy, I think? He's not a Howling Commando. And then there's just some guy who's not even wearing a hat. And then there's Bucky, which just no, I don't like how they handled Bucky in the movies. I never liked the Winter Soldier idea anyway, so the fact that they went with it, it's not the worst decision ever, but I just don't like it. What we got of Bucky in the first Avenger just wasn't that interesting. Aging him up is just something I've never liked because he's supposed to be Captain America's young sidekick, probably 18 years old, the guy that just enlisted in the US Army. But when he's his age and actually looks older and more mature than him, then it's just hard to take that seriously. And he doesn't really do much. And yeah, having Cap lead the Howling Commandos, I actually like a lot, but they don't do anything. Most of them don't even speak. They're just faceless soldiers. Then it just feels like they're dangling keys in front of Marvel fans' hands saying, "Hey, look, it's the Howling Commandos. Kind of, maybe. Here's the look. See that's totally dumb because he calls a Hydra soldier Fritz, which, yeah, it's a very nice reference, but or he even says Wahoo, except he just says Wahoo, the Howler's catchphrase. It just sounds so unenergetic and bored. What's even the point then? Probably be worse. This is probably worse than if they just didn't include them at all. Also, on a side note, I can't be the only one bothered by that montage toward the end where they literally show Captain America using a gun. Captain America would not use a gun. So that was it for this video. I know it's a lot shorter than my last one, but that's what I said. And again, I don't hate this movie. It's not too long. And it has some really good parts. I like the bits with Howard Stark. I like the Stanley Tucci playing the scientists that make the super soldier serum. I like Hugo Weaving's performance as the Red Skull. I love the Star Spangled Man with a Plan bit. I like the bit with the flying car. That was pretty funny. And yeah, this movie isn't awful, and I really like how it captured the 1940s. It definitely stands out among the MCU, but it's just sad this movie ended up coming off as so bland because yeah, this could have been the greatest comic book movie of all time if it were done right. Could have been a great World War II movie as well because it's not super fantastical or anything. So yeah, that's all I gotta say today. I just gotta ask you a question. What do you think of Captain America: The First Avenger? Is there anything you would have done differently? I'd like for you to post that in the comments. As for the next video, which will be out on Sunday, probably, that's going to be something very big. If you follow my community page, you'll already know what that is. So, as Sonic the Hedgehog would say, that's all for now, and keep on juicing.